All right. Half a day, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Guam History Day Judges Orientation. My name is Xavier Kanata. I'm a former competitor myself in the Guam History Day competition, former alum. I was asked to present to you all, and I think I'm also going to help judge as well this year. I was asked to present to you all to give you some insight on judging for this competition. And unfortunately, Mrs. Levon can't come in today. She's dealing with some family issues right now. She asked me to take over for today. All right. First of all, can everyone hear me well? Can I just get some thumbs up if everyone hear me? Awesome. All right. Perfect. Let me go ahead and get right into it then. All right. Okay. Can everyone see the screen for the slideshow? Cool. All right. As I said earlier, I just actually just finished my undergrad and I'm back here on Guam. Guam History Day has always been such a big part of my education growing up because I competed all the way from when I was sixth grade all the way until I was a senior in high school. And even before that, I would follow along on the trips as well, and I'd see all the different types of competitors, different types of judges, and I've gone through several different types of judges, both on the regional and national level. So I feel like I could provide, a different angle, a different insight into judging, um, that being someone who has come from the other side of the table. Right. So for today's presentation, we're just going to be going over four things. First is what is GHD. Second is the responsibilities of judges. Third is the actual judging portion of GHD. And then lastly, using the ZFAIRS program. So first of all, what is GHD? GHD is Guam History Day, right, which is a Guam Preservation Trust and University of Guam Micronesian Area Research Center project based on the National History Day. So this is um, so Guam History Day is essentially the precursor to the National History Day competition, and every single state does their own regional competition. Yeah, and it was initiated by the stakeholders of historic preservation as a strategic element in the development of a community action to protect and preserve Guam's historic sites, culture, and perspectives for the benefit of Guam's people and future. I think that, the thing that really sets apart GHD from a lot of the other competitions, such as, like Academic Challenge Bowl, Geography Bowl, Fish Bowl, Math Olympia, Science Fair, is that, of course, there is that competitive element. It gets these students out there and, working on something extracurricular, working on, uh, something to advance their education, but also it, it, uh, it helps to expand students' knowledge and also their friends and family, their classmates, teachers, their knowledge of Guam's history and Guam's culture, and spreads awareness about a lot of these things that you might not otherwise learn in a classroom. I think that's very valuable, and I've definitely learned so much from being a part of this program for so many years. So Guam History Day, it's not just one day, not just the competition, but it's a year-long program that involves middle and high school students as they creatively develop their perspectives of Guam's history through research, reading, presentations and writing, visual projects, and performance, right? Um, we have this competition coming up next week, Saturday, but most of these students have been working since, last semester, even on their projects leading up to next week Saturday. This is a culmination of all, the months and months of their research, their writing, um, uh, and just developing their projects. So, a lot of them have been working really hard on this. I remember back when I was in middle school, I went to Onsala Middle School, and I know that, Onsala Middle School is just typically more competitive when it comes to Guam History Day. They really take pride in, um, you know, uh, bringing out a lot of students and especially producing a lot of winners for this competition. And I remember get back in middle school, first day of school already, we're starting to talk about the theme for this year, start to think about projects. They want to get us started right off the bat. So, like I said, a lot of these students have been working on this for many months. So, GHD categories. What are the different categories that we will be judging? I know that some of you, or most of us, have already kind of an idea of which category we're going to be judging. But I'm just going to briefly go over all of them. So the first one is paper, second is website category, third is performance, fourth is documentary, and the fifth is exhibit. So the paper category, it's essentially, it is what it is. It's just a research paper between 1,500 to 2,500 words. This one is like probably one of the more popular ones as well. The second one is website. It's more dynamic type of project and more interactive, definitely, where us as judges, we can, interact with their website and see what they've created. The third is performance. This is probably the road less taken when it comes to categories, just because there's not a lot of students who have that that have that type of inkling to perform, or have that charisma, or have that confidence to put on a performance in front of judges. So definitely you're going to see a lot less entries with this one. The fourth one is documentary. This one's also pretty scarce when it comes to competitors. It's a 10-minute long documentary presentation, where this one's definitely a lot more dynamic. There's videos, there's pictures, background music, so many different factors that go into documentary. Um, and lastly, exhibit. It's typically just like a trifold board, but students can incorporate their own personal, like, artistic feel to it, and to depict their topic in Guam's history. Now, the project is, broken up into three different components. The first one being the project itself. This is the final product that we will be seeing next week, Saturday. And the next two, process paper and annotated bibliography, although, this isn't part of the final product, this is something that we still judge, something that we still read through. And these two are arguably more important than the actual product itself. The project itself, yes, this is the thing we are judging, right? This is the one that we actually see, but with the please, yes, sorry, I was just reading the comment there. The process paper and annotated bibliography are arguably more important than the project itself, because although we do see the final product and that's what we're judging, the process paper and bibliography are what led up to that project, and this shows how, shows the credibility of this project, the accuracy of the storytelling that you see in this project. And it really shows the students, process from start to finish, how they develop this project, and shows how much research they've put into it. So you could have the best project ever, looks great, meets all the requirements, but you look at the bibliography and, they didn't research that much, or, they don't have a diverse amount of sources, or maybe their process paper is a little bit vague. Maybe they, took a lot of shortcuts. So those are just some things to keep in mind when judging as well, is to really hone into the process paper and bibliography, which I believe you view before you even view the actual project. So the process paper, it's a 500 word or less document, paper, where basically describes, like I said, the student's process from start to finish in developing the project, right? So these are the 5 different points that the National History Day competition asks students to cover in their process paper. First one, how did you choose your topic and how does it relate to the theme? We have our theme every single year, have a different theme every year. Sometimes we do recycle themes after a while because I remember competing and this year's theme is turning points in history. I remember competing back in middle school and it was this was definitely one of the themes. So we want to see how the student, draws that relation from their topic itself to the broader overarching theme. Secondly, how did you conduct your research? Right, research is very, very important. When producing a historical product, you want to make sure that all the information you have is reliable, it's accurate. You want to have a good amount of primary sources. So really looking to see if, how wide the student researched and how far they went to conduct the research, right? Did they just stick to online research, right? Or did they, get out of their house and get to MARC Library? Did they go to RFK, Guam Library? Did they go through Library of Congress? Did they conduct interviews? You want to see how widely researched their student's project is because that just adds more and more credibility to the project. Thirdly, how did you create your project? You want to see the student's process on how they developed the product itself. So whether it be a documentary, you want to see what software they used, on whether it's paper. You want to see what their process was when creating their outline or their vision board for their paper. All those things, you want to see their thought process in creating their project. Number 4, what is your historical argument? Every single project should have a thesis statement or historical argument. Where yes, we are, these students are basically just providing facts, but there has to be some sort of claim, some sort of thesis statement that is consistent throughout their whole project, some sort of arguments that they're making. You want to be sure that the student understands what their thesis statement is. And this is also good because if they state, that they show you what their thesis statement is in the process paper, that's something you can keep in the back of your head as you're viewing their project. It's essentially the lens that you want to view the student's project through is their historical argument. So if it's very vague, if it's kind of all over the place, that's something to you might want to take note of or take into account with your judging sheets. Lastly, in what ways is your topic significant in history? Right? I don't want to downplay any historical event or compare any historical event, to one another, but um, it is important, at least for the student, to show concrete evidence on how this turning point in history really changed Guam, whether it's for good or for bad, social, political, cultural. Want to show its significance, want to show its like before and after effect. So really make sure that the student um, clearly states this in their process paper. Next, annotated bibliography. I know a lot of us as, a lot of you all as teachers, probably assign students when writing paper to cite their sources and all that stuff. This might be a little different. I'm not sure if many of you have, come across this, but it is very common in academia and it is a requirement for the National History Day competition itself. So annotated bibliography, the only difference between a regular bibliography is that this annotated bibliography, you have to add in, notes below your citation on basically what the source is about, just a brief like 1 to 2 sentences about the actual source, and then another 1 to 2 sentences on how this source helped you with your project. So that's something you want to look out for. So 2 things, small summary of the source. Second, how it helps the student develop their project, whether it be just developing their thought process, their outline, or they actually used it in their project, such as like a documentary, right? They have to cite their videos, right? Make sure that they put that in their bibliography as well. So this is something, really take your time when reading through their bibliography to make sure that they do this step properly. And I believe the format is MLA. All right, so winning GHD, why is this important? Students who win GHD and meet the judges' requirements will eventually go on to represent Guam at the national level in the National History Day competition in June. Students will get the opportunity to compete against other students from all over the United States. So winning Guam History Day isn't just, it definitely is an achievement in and of itself because you are winning the regional competition um, for this event, but you also get the opportunity to represent your island even further, spread, the word about Guam's history, spread awareness, and yeah, like I said, represent your island on the national level. It's really especially meaningful to a lot of students who aren't so into the, let's say, like the athletic side um like interscholastic sports. They find other avenues to succeed in. This is one of those things, right? So you know this gives, there's a lot of athletes who represent Guam in other countries or in the national level. But for us nerds, we like having our Guam History Day competition. It really brings a lot of pride, to us to represent our island. So this is very significant for not just Guam, but especially for the students themselves, uh, giving them that chance to represent their island. Second, judges' responsibilities. So, as judges, we have three main duties. The first one, first and foremost, right? This is like the bulk of it is evaluating the students' projects. Um, Obviously we're gonna have to judge every single project individually, right? And we have to do so in the most like unbiased manner as we possibly can, of course, right? It's really difficult, especially when you get in that first, you judge that first project, and you're trying your best, but you end up judging all the other projects after that based off of that project, or you judge a project based off of the other projects that came before it. So just really, we encourage you to really try your best to judge each project individually first, especially when writing on your judges sheets, when evaluating them on your sheets. Try your best not to compare it to other projects first. Just judge them first. Which brings us to the second part of our responsibilities, to determine the ranking of participants, right? Um, like I said, a lot of these students worked really hard over the year, worked on it for months even, um, and all to culminate this one product that you see before you. And they put a lot of work into it, and we feel bad. We can't give the prize to every single participant. We know everyone works hard, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, it is a competition, and we do have to determine the ranking of the participants. So then and only then is when you start to decide, okay, you know, which projects, we're probably at the top three or top five, and then let's go like try and our best to rank order them based off of, more and more minute details, more detailed reasoning on how to rank these participants. Third is assist in the development of the projects, right? So um, after the Guam History Day competition, like I said, is the national competition, which is, a couple months later. So between the Guam History Day competition and the National History Day competition, especially with the winners, they have to, they obviously would want to develop their project even more. So as judges, not only are we evaluating their project, but we're also giving them constructive feedback on how they can improve. And even for students who don't win, there are a lot of students who don't take home the prize, but they still want to work on their project even more, just because they've worked on it the entire year, and they really want to do their best and produce like one final good project, just something that they could be proud of, or maybe something that or maybe they want to present it to like their family, or something for school. So even students who don't end up winning the competition still very much appreciate that feedback. Third, their responsibility is the actual judging of NHD. So all of us will be given sheets, judging sheets for every single project, and each judging sheet is broken down into four different components: historical quality, clarity of presentation, project parameters, and the judge's notes. Historical quality, um, you'll see these sheets when they give it out to you, but if you want to view them beforehand, please visit the National History Day competition website. You can find the judging sheets for every single category there. Most of them, have the same kind of rubrics, but they're a little bit different because, all the categories are different. So historical quality for all, like across the board, it's going to be 80% of the score. And it's just laid out in a rubric that looks exactly like this. Just going to briefly go over the components of this rubric. First one is historical argument. Like I said earlier, every single project needs to have a clear thesis or claim. And they need to have a clear historical argument from which um, we as judges or even the audience must view their project through. It's a lens that we must view their project through. And if that isn't clear, then it can really hurt their chances as competitors. Second is the theme. Is this project consistent with the theme? The reason why we have the theme every year is just so that we have, an even playing field. We have some sort of, some sort of thing that connects all of our projects together, right? And how strongly it connects to the theme is also a really big component. Thirdly is wide research. We don't want our students to, just to stick to one type of source. We want to see, in their annotated bibliographies that they really went out of the comfort zone. They went out of their way to find different types of sources. So sources diversity is a really big component. Look out for, different types of sources like books, journals, articles, videos, photos, interviews. You want to see all of these things incorporated into the research. And yeah, so like, if you come across one of, a bibliography where it's just all newspaper articles, or someone like only did online research, it's all websites, that's something, that you might want to put in your judges sheets or take note of. Fourth, primary sources. Primary sources are very important. As we all know, these provide the most credible information with regards to their research and their projects. These are the primary sources of evidence that support their historical argument, right? That bolster their thesis. And so we want to see a good amount of primary sources on their bibliography, a good proportion of primary to secondary and tertiary resources. Historical context, we want to see the student showing their topic and their topic's relevancy within the time period and place or region that it takes place. For example, like with let's say like the Guam Land Trust Act, right? Let's say a student did a project on the Guam Land Trust Act and only just talked about, the hunger strike that Angel Santos did that led to the signing of the Guam Land Trust Act. So, sure, that's great and all, but we want to show how it's relevant to the time period. Provide that historical backdrop basically that leads up to this event and eventually shows why it's significant. So we want to look out for that when judging projects. Multiple perspectives. This is a history competition. We want to make sure that that our students aren't introducing more bias than is needed. Make sure that they're incorporating different perspectives in their argument. Yes, they are making their own thesis, their own argument, but they also have to, showcase other perspectives or other counter arguments to that, just so that, we don't introduce any bias, Next is historical accuracy. This one is, just ensure that the information that they have is credible, it's consistently accurate throughout the way, or even not just that, but even just omitting certain information is a big thing to look out for. Yes, maybe all of their dates in their project are correct, all of the events line up, but maybe throughout the way there are a few key things that are critical to their narrative or critical to their argument that they just omit or they just didn't say. So that's something that you want to look out for as well. Significance in history, like I said earlier, we want the student to be able to show the impact that their topic had on Guam's history or Guam's culture, or society. So these are all the different things that I look out for. And I want to break these down individually because as you can see, takes up 80% of the score. So it is very important. Next is clarity of presentation. This is obviously also really important. It varies between different categories. I chose documentary just to, give you a little example. So you see audio and visuals, want to make sure that, if you're judging documentary, the audio is consistent and appropriate, easy to understand. The visuals are also consistent and appropriate with, you know, according to the audio to support the narrative, right? If you're judging a documentary and they're talking about the Guam Congress walkout, right? But they're showing like the most recent Guam legislature, Guam Congress, then the pictures don't really line up, right? So you want to make sure that the visuals support the audio as well. Technical side, want to make sure that especially when you're viewing a documentary or viewing a performance, pretty much for all the projects, want to make sure that it's free of mechanical or grammatical errors. Specifically with documentary, make sure the volume is consistent, the audio is consistent. I've seen a lot of documentaries where the volume will be super loud in one section of their documentary, and then the next thing you know, the next recording, it's like very quiet. You can barely hear. Or same thing with the music. The back track is really loud and overpowering the narration, and then all of a sudden it's a quiet and you can't really hear it. So make sure those things are consistent. Lastly, is student voice. You want to make sure that the student isn't just echoing what they've read, right? You want to make sure that you do see their own voice come out in their projects, and it's consistently clear and balanced between their own words and ideas and the supporting evidence that they use to bolster their arguments. Lastly is or thirdly is the project parameters. Now these things are very important. I would say get these out of the way as soon as possible because if I'm not if I'm not mistaken, if they don't meet the project parameters, then they might be grounds for disqualification. So they could have like the best project you've ever seen, but if they don't meet the project parameters, then they might be DQ'd. So really pay attention to these, and give feedback as well when it comes to project parameters because out in the nationals, they're very, very, very thorough when it comes to this. So we don't want to be sending out a first place winner and they don't meet their project parameters and then they get disqualified out there, right? So this is also something to really focus in on. This is just an example with an exhibit project parameters. Those of you who are judging exhibit, this is what it's going to look like. It's got to be less than or equal to 40 inches wide and 72 inches tall, etc. Lastly is judges' notes. Like I said earlier, we want to be able to give constructive feedback to these students because, whether they go on to nationals or they just want to improve their project for themselves, we want to be able to give them that feedback, right? And I think they initiated a rule now where you guys have a minimum amount of words when it comes to giving notes. So I guess we're all kind of forced to give notes anyways. So, this is something to think about. So I just wanted to show you just the difference between poor notes, something we don't want to be saying to these students, and constructive notes, right? We have to remember these aren't like these aren't post-grad students, defending their thesis or their PhD. These are just middle school and high school students who are getting into getting into research, getting into this field, right? So we want to encourage them. We want to give them constructive feedback, and we don't want to discourage them from competing again or discourage them from doing something like this in the future, right? So with looking at the poor notes, just running through them, insufficient, like if you see like insufficient research, it's very vague. Why is it insufficient? Is it not as diverse? Maybe you want to say something like, try expanding your diversity of research or diversity of sources, or maybe it's lacking primary sources. You want to be very specific and detailed when it comes to your notes. Unclear thesis statement. it is important to let them know that their thesis statement was unclear, but, try to give a little explanation as to why it was unclear, or try to, be like, try to say, or give advice on how they can narrow down or hone in on their thesis statement if it's too broad. Third, this is like a positive comment. Nice background music. Yes, it is positive, it is uplifting, but it doesn't really add any substance to their project. You know, maybe explain why the background music was nice. Maybe say it was at a good volume, or it really helped to match the tone of the narration. Stuff like that. Lastly, saying something like the governor was in the wrong for signing that bill, commenting on something in their project. We, like I said, we don't want to introduce any more bias than is already there, right? So when you judge these projects, really try your best to leave your own personal political views, or um, yeah, personal views, out the door, and really view these projects objectively, and stray away from opinionated comments such as those. Next is constructive notes. So these are a few examples of, stuff that we want to encourage you as judges to leave on these students' judges sheets. First one is great use of primary source interviews to add depth to your narrative on the Guam Congress walkout, right? It, commends the student for using primary sources, for especially for using an interview and explaining why it was a good thing that they did that and what it adds to the project. Second one, consider using video footage or Ken Burns effects to add dynamic elements to your documentary, right? This is on a student's documentary. I always use documentary examples because I mostly did documentary when I was competing. Um, you know, if a student, let's say like this, the student did a documentary that just consisted of just like still photos, right? Not very dynamic. This is, something that you could give some constructive feedback, you could give some sort of advice to make the project more dynamic, more interactive, keeps the audience's attention. And it is very helpful, right? Something they can use to build off of when improving their documentary. Lastly, very clear and concise thesis statement, just a nice little positive comment, reassures the student that, hey, like, I was able to know what your thesis statement was by, viewing your project, and the student can be like, all right, cool, that's something that I don't have to worry about moving forward. I can focus on other things. So those are just some examples of judges' notes that we don't want you to talk about, and stuff that we encourage you to talk about. All right. Lastly is using ZFairs. ZFairs will be the online judges portal that you'll all be using. I haven't competed in a while, and I haven't, been involved in, I haven't volunteered in a while, so I'm not familiar with using ZFairs. I think they started this back in COVID. So I'm going to refer to a video from the presentation from past years. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'll go ahead and play the video. Yes, so this is video of Lazo Kanata explaining how to use ZFairs. Oh, 1 second. All right, I'll go ahead and play that. Should be about like 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
Please contact Lavon Guerrero Meno. Her contact info is going to be the end of this presentation, or myself, Lazo Kanata, and we can easily help you set your ZFairs account up. So ZFairs is an online judging portal created by the National History Day competition in order to help streamline the judging experience. Once you've logged on to your ZFairs account and you go to the Judges Center, you'll be able to see a screen kind of like this. And we'll look at the different aspects of the screen. So first on the top, if you look right there on the top right where the blue is at, it's going to be your name. So make sure that your name is there. And then if we look first at this white area, you can see that you have the category you're judging. So in this case, it's senior individual website. And then you have the 3 judges that are with you. So you are going to be judging with 3 judges, and 1 judge will be designated as a judge captain. Now, the job of the judge captain is just to make sure that everyone is working together, that they're all viewing the judging sheets together and they're filling them out. And then also the judge captain is going to be in charge of ensuring that a consensus is being reached. Okay, now, if you notice, there's going to be the names of each of the three judges as well as their contact information, so their email, and then their phone number if they put it. Now, this is just a way for you guys to get in contact with one another so that over the course of the week while you guys are looking at the project and looking at the evaluation sheets, you guys can, consult with one another to see whether or not, whether something is meeting a certain mark. Okay. There is a button on the top. Looks like three people being connected by like this, like square. That button will open up a call for the three of you through this portal. So if you're all, rather than going through Zoom or setting up a Zoom or a Google Meet, you can click that button and it'll start a call between all three of you through the ZFairs portal. So super convenient way to meet up. If not meeting up in person, meeting up online. Okay, now if you look at the bottom, you will see that that there are two entries here. There is the entry code as well as the title of the project. And then because they're websites, it's links to those projects. So depending again on the category you're going to get, you're going to be shown different, different information. So for this case, it's a website to the NHD Web Central. If it was a documentary, it would be a link to where you can view the video, whether it's on YouTube or Google Drive, and so on. Okay. So we see all of those things. It even gives the judging times. Now, when you open it up, you're gonna get a page that looks very similar to the judging sheet. It's exactly the same verbatim. You just click on the things that you want, and then in the bottom, you'll have a chance to write notes. Okay. Now, once you complete your evaluation sheet, okay, you will have a screen that looks like this. It's the same stuff, but if you look on the right side, so here we have the three judges' names, as well as their progress with judging. So it's going to say whether it's not started, whether it's in progress, or whether it's finished. Okay. Now, if it's not started, it means you haven't opened it up yet. If it's in progress, it just means that maybe you went halfway through and then you saved it, but you didn't finish judging all the way. There's a number of things that are going to indicate whether or not you're in progress or whether you finished. So once everything is done, it's finished, you will then get the option to submit a ranking. And then with submitting the ranking, you'll be able to pick who's first, second, and third, much like this. Okay. Now ZFairs again is going to be a little bit difficult. On the competition day, we will have a number of staff from the MARC able to assist you with any technical difficulties, any questions you might have in accessing the different tabs on ZFairs. Okay. So again.
All right. Okay, so I was asked to let you guys know also after this presentation that registration instructions have been sent to your emails. And please, after this meeting, please take the time to register if you haven't so already. So please, just a friendly reminder to check your emails, look out for the registration link, all right? Does anyone have any questions? This basically concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions at all before we close out? All right. Well, if you don't have any questions, or if you think about something later on, feel free to email Mrs. Levon, and she'll be able to answer your questions. I believe a link to this video will be sent to your emails as well. So if you want to backtrack, you can also listen in or rewatch this video. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to attend this orientation. And hope to see you all next week, Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.